everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Councillor Sandra Moore, and I'd like to welcome you this morning to this subcommittee hearing. Can I receive nominations to chair this meeting, please?
I'm happy to nominate Councillor Moore as chair.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Right, item 2 is the apologies. And can I ask my clerk, are there any apologies for the meeting?
No apologies received, Chair.
Thank you. Right, item 3, we go on to declarations of interest. So I'm going to ask each subcommittee member in turn if they have any declarations of interest. I'll start with myself because I haven't got any declarations to interest to declare.
No declarations to declare either.
No declarations.
Thank you. Right, so then we go on to item 4, which is the protocol for public speaking at hybrid meetings like this. And all attendees are asked to note the protocol in relation to the Licensing Act hearing, which has all been circulated with the agenda. Thank you. So then we go on to the housekeeping. I think my clerk is going to read this out. I'd also like to say in a few minutes there's going to be a lot of fire alarm going on, so there's a lot of noise, but it is the fire alarm, and we just have to sit through it, I'm afraid, but it is only a practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Please note that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present please follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the chairman. State your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. Please ensure that you unmute yourself and always turn on the video function before speaking. Please mute your microphone when you are not talking. After each party has made their representation, the chairman will ask each person in turn if they have any questions or comments. However, if at any point you would like to speak again, please use the raise your hand function at the top right of the screen. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point along Brady Road under the flyover. Finally, please can we ensure that background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So now we go on to item 5, where an application has been received to vary the premises licence for the premises known as Abracadabra at 3 High Street, Christchurch, BH23 1AB. And this matter is brought before the Licensing Subcommittee for determination today. I will now ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. So I'll start with myself, Councillor Sandra Moore, Vice Chair of the Licensing Committee, and today I'm chairing the subcommittee. Over to you.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Emily Harman. I'm a councillor of the Parkstone Ward. I'm a member of the Licensing Committee and I'm on the subcommittee today.
Hello, I'm Paul Hilliard, Councillor for Muddyford, Stanton and West Highcliffe. I'm on the Licensing Committee and sitting on the subcommittee this morning.
Thank you. I've also got Councillor Chapman-Law and Councillor Keddy. They're both reserve members. Obviously, they're not required to participate because we're all here. But they are staying because they want to observe for training purposes. They won't be taking part in the meeting or anything to do with the decision making, but they are here just to observe. And we've got Councillor Dower is actually online, and again she is watching for training purposes and won't be participating in the meeting or afterwards when we determine the application. Right, and obviously we're now determined that it's Mrs. Clark as the agent. Would you like to introduce yourself, Mrs. Clark? I think you're on mute.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is June Clark. I am a licensing consultant since 2002. I used to be a licensing consultant for the old regime, the Licensing Act 64, and I'm nearly retired. So I'm here today because my son, who's taken over my business, has had to go to another hearing. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, please fire away. But I hope that I'm acceptable to everybody.
Yes, of course, you're acceptable to everyone. Thank you for coming. Mr. Yunus Mohammed, would you like to introduce yourself if you want to?
Hi, my name is Yunus. I'm the business owner.
Thank you. Louise Busfield, Dorset Police. Oh, sorry.
When people are leaving.
It does go on. Sorry about that. Doesn't make your ears ring, doesn't it? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Louise Busfield, Dorset Police Licensing Officer.
Thank you. And we also have, I think, Vanessa Rosali. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Vanessa Rosales. I'm here to support Louise Busfield.
Thank you. Right, and we have Ellie King, our licensing officer.
Good morning, my name's Ellie King. I'm BCP Council Licensing Officer.
Thank you. Linda Cole, our trusted legal advisor.
Good morning, I'm Linda Cole. I'm the legal advisor to the subcommittee this morning.
Thank you. And we have Michelle Cutler, our clerk.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Cutler. I'm the clerk for today, and I should also say I have Rebecca Rhodes and Sinead Callahan with me. They are training from Democratic Services, so they won't be taking part in the meeting today. They're just here to observe. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Just before I carry on, Mr. Mohammed, would you like to put your camera on for us? Because all it's got is a circle with a Y in it. That's better, and we can see you. Thank you very much. Right. So before I run through the procedure, can I check that all persons who have given notice of their intention to speak have been identified, and any person who wishes to withdraw representation or wishes not to speak has been identified? Okay, I can take that as correct. So now I'm going to explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for the hearing. The licensing officer presents the report. The applicant will then make their application. Questions of the applicants by all parties, but members of the subcommittee go first. Responsible authorities, that's going to be the police, will make their representations. Questions of the responsible authorities, again, members of the subcommittee will go first. All parties will be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude, and the subcommittee will deliberate in private with legal advisor and clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or last day on which the hearing was held in accordance with the regulations. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. So now can I ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations? So Mrs. Clark, you okay with everything? Would you like me?
Yeah. Would you like me to?
Just to confirm you're okay with everything that I've just announced. Is that okay? Thank you. Mr. Mohammed, are you okay with the procedures?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Thank you. Right, Louise Busfield?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
King, you okay?
Sorry, was that me? Yes, I'm fine if it was Ellie.
Thank you. Everything okay?
Yes, that's
it good, guys?
fine, Chair, yeah.
Okay. So we carry on. So finally, can I remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they've already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chair, and there will be no cross-examination of parties. And can I now confirm that everyone has received the supplementary documents that were sent out yesterday? And can I also ask you to confirm that nothing in those was confidential?
That's fine, they don't have to be below the line, is this?
Okay, so there's no need to go below the line.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. Right, so we can start. So can I now ask the licensing officer to present the report?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair. The matter
Morning.
before you for consideration this morning is an application to vary the premises licence at Abracadabra, previously known as E&E. Abracadabra is a convenience store located at 3 The High Street, Christchurch. An application was made by Mr Tony Clark on behalf of Mr Yunus Mohammed on the 22nd of August 2023 to increase the licensable hours for the supply of alcohol. The current licence permits off sales of alcohol between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. on every day of the week. This application seeks to extend the terminal hour for the supply of alcohol from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. again on every day, and to remove conditions 2.1 and 2.3 from the licence. Just for clarity, in the application, those conditions are shown as 1.1 and 1.3. Condition 2.1 requires that staff are trained in licensing law, drug awareness and conflict management, and condition 2.3 requires for the premises to participate in Town Watch. For clarity, I have checked and I've been unable to identify a Town Watch or similar scheme appropriate to Abracadabra in place at the moment. Dorset Police have made a representation under the Prevention of Crime and Disorder and Public Safety Licensing Objectives on the basis that following a multi-agency visit to the premises in August 2023, which identified a number of breaches of the licence conditions, they are not confident that the operator is promoting the licensing objectives. Members are asked to consider the evidence before them today and decide whether to grant this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any questions for the licensing officer? So far? No? Okay. So now can I ask the applicant, or at least I presume Mrs. Clark, you want to do it on his behalf, to make your application?
Okay, good morning, thank you. My name is June Clark and I've been a licensing consultant for 19 years with JMC Licensing. I need to apologise for Tony. As I said before, he's not able to attend and I'm here instead. If I may explain a brief history of my client, it may help to understand the circumstances he finds himself in today. Mr. Mohammed agreed to purchase the shop back in May after he heard the lease was up for sale. At the time, it was a little confusing for Mr. Mohammed as to who actually owned the business and who was the premises license holder and who was the DPS. It appeared to have several owners over a short space of time, and that includes owners of the business and owners of the license as well. One of the owners, Mr. Yagmore, told him he would contact somebody called David to change the license to his name, but he never heard anything for several weeks. In the meantime, Mr. Mohammed approached our office from another person that was involved in the business. So that's how we became involved, and that he instructed us to deal with his little problem and to transfer the license and change the supervisor to his name. After quite a frustrating investigation, and I actually did this, and several telephone calls after several days, we were also unable to establish who exactly was on the licence. So we emailed the licensing office on the 4th of May asking for information. We finally submitted the applications to transfer and change the DPS on the 30th of May. However, somehow this email was missed by the office and it was not found until the 21st of August. It was then that the applications for transfer and change of DPS were actually processed. We thought they'd been done. We inquiring about where is the licence. It's been a while, to be told that they didn't have the email with the applications on. It was electronic. And then I produced evidence that we had submitted the electronic applications, and that's when they were processed. During this time, our client had also instructed us to go through his license and to do a full compliance check, because that's what we specialise in. And then submit, initially it was just a minor variation for the change of the layout of the premises, as we identified that there had been a change. We didn't know, because we couldn't get hold of the licence, we couldn't get the plans. The applicant actually had changed one or two things. So we recommended that we did this straight away, which was the minor variation. And then he asked, could we add a couple of hours on at the end? So we changed from a minor variation to a full variation. During this period, Mr. Mohammed was establishing his shop, and then obviously one of the first instructions was, can you make me compliant? We sent Mr. Mohammed a full set of compliance logbooks around the end of June. I think it was about the 19th of June, and organised him and his only member of staff, a gentleman called Farzad, to enrol on a conflict management training course, because that was one of the conditions, besides some other training. Mr. Mohammed and Farzad actually gained the conflict management level 2 award on the 10th and the 21st of August respectively. And I do have the certificates, and so does the candidates. If you need to see a copy, I can email them over to Ellie. The reason for the delay on these was that both gentlemen needed time to study. It's quite a complex area, conflict management, and it needs a full understanding. And it was difficult because of the hours that the gentlemen were working. I'd like now to address the representation from the police. Given that we sent a full set of compliance books to the shop we sent them to his house actually on the 19th. These books consisted of, well, I've not wrote them down, but I do know them. There was a CCTV logbook, which is completed every week, every day, every month, whatever the client wants to do. We recommend every week. There was 2 staff training books. One of them is called the staff induction training, which goes through the licensing objectives. It goes through the various notices and signs around the shop. And there's a section on the license and its conditions. There's also another training book, which is the staff product training book, which consists of 3 sections: a blue, which is all about challenge 25. It's all about refusals of sales and what to deal with them, how to deal with people, There's conflict management in there. And the green section is all about cigarettes. And the purple section is all about age-related restriction products, which go through everything from petrol to cigarette papers. Now, I know they don't sell petrol, but the books are not bespoke for the premises. They're for everybody, garages and everybody. And then he's also got an incident book and a refusal book. And all these books are designed to last the applicant at least 5 years. We designed the books back in 2000, well, I did, back in 2007, and they've been accepted by all the police forces. And Manchester City Council actually love them. They were designed to be fully compliant and to be used as a tool to support applicants with premises licenses. As you're aware that during application that's applications that's licenses that's approved, these applications and licenses are given, whether they're proposed or added to afterwards, conditions, and a lot of people cannot deal with the conditions. They don't know where to get incident books from, refusal books from. How do they monitor the CCTV? Where did they get all the signage from? The proxy signs, where did they get them from? Now, originally you couldn't get anything anywhere. Now there are several things available on the net, but you couldn't get them. So I designed them, Challenge 25 and everything. I designed them, and that's what we've been giving our clients since 2007. And Eunice has them in his shop, and he's had them since the 19th of July. So go back to the representation from the police. If we address it one by one, reference 2.2, 2.31 and 2.32. At the time of the visit, the shop did have a refusal logbook. It had one and it was in use. Mr. Mohammed works most of the hours himself, so he is the main one that completes the refusal book. 2.3, my client is not aware of any town centre initiative. I've done an investigation and I can't find anything anyway. And that's the reason why we asked for that condition to be removed, because it's unenforceable. No one from the licensing office has ever visited him to inspect his books or to check compliance. Even on the visit when Mr. Mohammed came back after the visit by the officers on the 8th of August, he checked the CCTV footage and he watched the officers and what they did. And no one asked to see the refusal logbook and the other books, which were actually under the counter. 2.62, the CCTV system was working correctly. The dates and times were accurate and the recordings were being kept for 31 days and it's in the logbook. 2.63, 64, 65, no one asked the temporary member of staff, was he able to download any recent data footage? So it is not known how the police officer can say that the condition was in breach. There was a CCTV, there still is a CCTV signage on display in the shop. Mr. Mohammed has a CCTV logbook and it is completed on a weekly basis, and he confirmed his cameras are working, 31-day storage, accurate date and timings are being maintained. 2.10, Mr. Mohammed works on his own for a long time and he has completed the additional training on product age-restricted goods. Mr. Mohammed has 2 training books on site, as I've already explained. 2.11 and 2.12, refresher training will be completed prior to Christmas, which will be the 6-month interval. The training books are designed to last, on average, as a shop the size of Mr. Mohammed's, where he's only got one member of staff, the books will last at least 5 years. And probably even 10 years. So the books will be there for, I would say, at least 10 years. And the incident book hopefully will never be completed. Training, no proof of age, training in proof of age, 2.12.2. No sale training can be found in the, no proof of age - no sale training can be found in the blue section of the age-related product training book. Again, this book is available for inspection. All the other legal notices and signage are on display. We're on display. Challenge 25, proxy signs at the point of display and sale, premises license summary, section 57, subsection 3 notice, age verification policy, quiet policy notices, alcohol refusals policy. Mr. Mohammed has an incident book. Fortunately, it's never been completed. All these books were available for inspection at the time of the visit on the 8th of August. We do have proof and evidence that these books were posted to Mr. Mohammed's home on the 19th. So it's difficult for me to understand why the officers never asked to see them. With regard to the seized vapes, I am not a smoker and I'm not familiar with vapes. So I conducted a little research on different sites on the internet to educate myself in vapes. I looked into not only about vapes, but the legislation to find that it's not actually legislation, but regulations from a statutory instrument, which we all know is not law. I was completely confused with the different types of vapes, sizes, capacities, with or without nicotine, 2 mil, 10 mil, 30 mil. But what I had difficulty in finding was the actual date these regulations came into play. So then I had to revert to the actual statutory instrument itself. According to the Gov.uk website, vapes are controlled by the Tobacco Related Product Regulations 2015 requirements and General Product Safety Regulations 2005. It's also controlled by the Consumer Rights Act 2015. Now that is law because it's an act. Then it appears there are some vapes that are reforming themselves by being able to add their own nicotine and jumping through loopholes to escape the regulations. They also now produce them with additional tanks. IVG 2,400 puffs claim to be legal. Happy Vibes Twist have 3,500 puffs, and they use the same loophole, and Bats Views Go Car to offer 800 puffs, while also being MHRA registered and TPD compliant. And it's because they've got separate tanks, apparently. According to the regulations, second-hand vapes are not even covered by the regulations. So it's not surprising that Mr. Mohammed, being new to the retail industry, was not aware of all this. It's completely baffling, completely confusing. And he'd only had the shop for about a week and a half when he purchased these products from a middle-aged Asian man who called at his shop. He said he was from Birmingham, which I know, has been 19 years in this industry, I know is the main centre for all tobacco smuggling is Birmingham. And told my client the products were legal. Why should he not believe him? My client did believe him, as he had not heard otherwise, and other shops were selling them. So Mr. Mohammed displayed the seized vapes behind the counter. What's interesting is the vapes were not hidden. They were on full view. When you walked in the shop, they were there in front of everybody. So normally if somebody is doing something where they know it or believe it to be unlawful or illegal, they hide them and conceal them under the counter, behind, in bins, in carrier bags, in cars, You know, they conceal them. These were not concealed. They were right in front of you as you walked in the shop. So that proves on its own that he wasn't trying to conceal them, and because he didn't know. He honestly did not know. Wholesalers and trade bodies, if you look on the internet, there's quite a well-known magazine or website called Better Retailing. And I found one dated the 10th of August, and the heading was Veil Loopholes Exploited. And it was betterretailing.com, 10th of the 8th, 2023. And all it stated was wholesalers and trade bodies are only advising retailers not to stock vapes more than 600. They did not say they were illegal. You can have a look yourself, which I was quite surprised. Apparently 1 in 12 stores, according to Better Retailing, 1 in 12 stores are stocking and selling a product called Elux Legend 3,500, which confirms that possibly quite a few other retailers don't know or choose to ignore. I would say most of them don't know exactly what the rules are. They do now because there's quite an intense enforcement of these vapes, and it's not just in the BCP area, it is nationwide. One officer told me that they'd been given extra funding to go around and seize it. But what I couldn't understand was that you can't buy a vape, or you're not supposed to sell vapes over 2 mils. Yeah, because 2 mils apparently is equal to 20 cigarettes. So how can you go in? Are you allowed to go in and buy 10 2 mils and just smoke them one after another? It doesn't make any sense to me. On the day of inspection, which was the 8th of August last, my client was extremely upset because his neighbours in the offices above had been to see him. There are 3 businesses above my client's shop. One is an architect's office, a kitchen design company, and a structural engineer's practice. All 3 came to him and complained that they had had a visit from the officers at the same time. And the officers had interrogated them in their shops, asking about my client's business and his activities, which they didn't know. One officer took the staff member's personal home keys from him. The gentleman that was in the shop, he told him, these keys are for my home, and they took them off him, and they tried to force the doors open of the barber's shop upstairs. This was witnessed by the kitchen design company. The barber's shop has got nothing to do with my client, and I understand this was reported to the landlord because they thought they might have broken the lock. So what is also noticed on the TS report, it says consent given to search. Mr. Mershad, who was the temporary friend who was just looking after the shop because he had no staff, he had no authority to give the officers the right to search. No authority. Mr. Mohammed should have been notified when the officers arrived and realised he wasn't there. And Mr. Mohammed should have been given the opportunity to return to the shop, to speak to the officers and to monitor the search and answer questions, which he has the right to do. No one contacted him until the officers had left. Instead, the officers closed his shop for 2 hours while they searched the shop. They were refusing entry to his customers, which is unlawful, and they're not allowed to do that. A full search of the premises included the toilet, found nothing more. The interesting point about this is because the licensing office had mislaid our email, which we submitted on the 30th of May, containing the electronic transfer and change of DPS, when the officers attended the shop, they could not have known who was on the premises license. This was because there was a mix-up of paperwork in the office at the time, and even the office didn't know exactly who was on the license, because this problem was sorted out afterwards. And because there was people in, then out, and changes, the licensing office got mixed up, which is understandable. So the officers who attended could not have known exactly who was on the license, because Mr. Mohammed's name did not go on the license until after the visit. That's why they never asked for the PLH or the DPS in name. They just wanted to know who was running the shop, and they described my client as the boss. Well, of course he's the boss, it's his shop. If they had a copy of the license with them, they would have been able to identify who was the actual PLH and who was the DPS. And it was only at the end of August when our office and the licensing office sorted it all out. So my question is, how at the time of the visit did the officer know what the breaches were if they didn't have a copy license? And if they had a copy license, why didn't they ask for the PLH or the DPS that was named on it? Because they didn't. Since the 8th of August, my client has received no more visits from the licensing or anybody to check his compliance. In fact, he's never had a visit from the licensing or the police, just the search party on the 8th of August. It's also strange that a shop with so many alleged breaches, which you can actually go to prison for, you know, if we all know you can go to prison 6 months, unlimited fine for breach. And we've got so many breaches that it should have rang alarm bells everywhere. The whole of Bournemouth Council should have been alarmed going off, but it didn't. Nobody bothered. Nothing was mentioned at all until the client submitted the variation to request more trading hours. In the close area, there are 5 pubs and a few takeaways. Most of these premises are open until the early hours. My client is always being asked by customers, can you open a bit later? So once he put the shop in order and got everything sorted, he decided to apply at the same time for additional hours. And where the shop is, there's hardly any problems. There's nothing in the report from the police about crime and disorder in the area. So obviously the police are happy with it. It is a quiet area. The police are not objecting to the new layout of the premises, and they're not objecting to the additional hours. There is no mention in the police representation of any antisocial issues in the area or problem people. So in fact, the police are not objecting to the additional hours requested at all in the application, and neither is Trading Standards. The police representation only highlights alleged breaches, and we have already explained that these breaches were not really breaches at all. Our client did have all the tools in place to cover each condition. The only condition that was not fully in place was the conflict management training, and that was being processed. Our client, it's the reason why this was, the police said this is because no one checked it. No one checked it. They just assumed he didn't have anything. And if they had have checked it at the time, they probably wouldn't be here today. So we respectfully ask the panel to grant the additional hours as requested in our application, as both the police and Trading Standards are not objecting to the extra hours. They've, in their representations, it's basically just a complaint about a visit that they made on the 8th of August. No one's been back to check it since. So that concludes my statement, and obviously I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Could I ask Mr. Mohammed, as the applicant, whether or not you've got anything to add to it? Okay, right. So we'll ask some questions then. So members of the subcommittee, perhaps you'd like to go first. Councillor Harman.
Thank you. Yes, so you mentioned that the application wants to remove two conditions, 2.1 and 2.3. I just wanted to ask regarding 2.1, if Mr. Mohammed and his employee have already gone through the conflict management training, why it would be necessary to remove that condition? Because it does also mention it includes licensing law and drug awareness as part of that condition. So I'd like to know that, please.
We cover conflict management is all about man management. It's all about managing people and how to deal with aggressive people. And basically, it just all boils down to diffuse. That's all you do, diffuse. Back off, diffuse, calm them down. That particular area is actually already in our training in the blue section of the training, the staff induction training book. And what I don't I mean, I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for many years, and I used to teach security, so I know all about conflict management. And what I find is, and I teach the personal license holders as well, and other things too. The licensing law, I teach that. And what I've found is that when somebody learns something, they can walk away and within a month, 2 months, they've forgotten what they've learned. And I had a friendly bet with a local licensing officer, and we went to 5 pubs and bars in the town where we live, and we asked 5 basic questions, and not one of them could answer. Maybe one of them got something right, and they'd only just got the personal licenses. So what I find is that when you do a one-off course, yes, you do learn and you do remember some of it, but most of it is forgotten within a short space of time. What I find is better is repeat training, because that's how we learn as children. We repeat things, tying your shoelace, putting a tie on, you know, that's how you learn. And in the conflict management sections of our training book, there is an opportunity to keep repeating in there. So to go to the expense of, you know, maybe 50, 60 pounds to pay for conflict management certificate, to me is just a waste of time, and it's a waste of money, to be honest. And we never put that condition on the license. Somebody else did, and I never, in 19 years, I never offer statutory training. I never offer it because I know that it's a waste of time. You know, the handbooks are better. So does that answer the question?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I do have another question. Okay. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to understand a little bit more about the strength of the alcohol being sold in the shop. Obviously, extending the hours by 3 hours from 11 till 2 a.m. People coming out of bars and pubs, that sort of thing. I want to know what products would be available to those customers at that time, strength of those products. Thank you.
I think the best person to answer that would be Eunice, who could tell you the strength of the products that he sells.
Mr. Mohammed, would you like to answer? Question?
Sorry, could you say again the question?
Would you like to repeat the question?
Yeah, I can do that. So I just wanted to know a bit more about the products you would be selling, or that you do currently sell and would be available to be purchased with those extra hours if they were added. So the percentage of the alcohol strength.
Not really. Like basically, some people just come to buy the crepes or like one beer. That's it.
I think
Just
the councillor's asking what strength. So is it 4.5, 6.7? Do you sell high strength ciders? Do you sell high strength lagers?
No, just like as normal when we buy from the cash and carry, the buka, that can be the normal beer. Not really strong.
Okay. Councillor Hilliard?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions, please, Mrs. Clark. Obviously, my ward is actually in Christchurch. I'm aware of Christchurch Shop Watch, which obviously shops and retailers and establishments are involved with. So I was surprised that you and your clients weren't aware of that. You're not aware of Shop Watch? Okay, and the other question, obviously you mentioned there's 2 staff, including Mr. Mohammed, but are you expecting to hire more staff if you're covering from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m.?
Sorry, yes,
Eunice, will you be employing more staff because of the extra hours?
yeah,
So there will always be a trained person to oversee sales of alcohol. If you're not there or the other existing member of staff, there will always be a trained member.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
No further questions. I'd like to ask a question, if I may, please. Can I ask if you're actually proposing any other conditions for training? Is it only the level 2, the award and conflict management you're objecting to, or any, or are you going to propose any other condition retraining, especially if you're going to have to employ extra staff in order to accommodate the opening time until 2 o'clock in the morning? It would be important, I think, I expect you agree, that everyone is well trained. Thank you.
Yeah, I've actually recommended that when this condition was removed, but at the time I also recommended that you submit that we or Tony submitted another proposed condition to cover the other side of the training. It was just the conflict management that we wanted to remove. We're more than happy to train on licensing objectives, on sale of alcohol, on age-related products, and the relevant other types of legislation. We're more than happy to do that. It was just the conflict management. So if the panel would like to or if we can agree a condition that everyone's happy with, more than happy to accept it.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? No questions.
Can I just clarify that you just mentioned a proposed condition. So is it the actual doing the qualification of the level 2 conflict management course is the concern, or is it just training generally in conflict management?
No, it's the payment to an outside body for staff, because what happens that I've found over the years is that a lot of licenses, they have conditions on to say that all staff must have personal licenses. And to obtain a personal license, it can be quite costly. You've got the examination, you've got the police check, and you've got the council fees. And what a lot of staff do is they join a shop, they start working in a shop, they get the personal license, and then they leave. So the owner of the shop has gone through the expense of anything up to £300 to obtain a personal license for a member of staff, and then they walk off. and there's nothing they can do. And then as soon as the next staff come, they have to retrain them, pay again another £300, and then they walk off again. And this is the same. This is what happens when you have a condition which needs an outside body, a payment to an outside body. Yes, you can take them and to be trained, but it's costing the shopkeeper, and there's nothing to stop the person after the payment's been made walking away with a qualification. So that's the reason why I personally don't agree with it. But there is conflict management training in as I've explained, there's 25 questions on challenge 25 with multiple choice answers. And I would say at least 10 of them is about conflict management inside and this is the training books that he's got has been designed to train in 3 ways. You can do self-training, where you can take the book and you can train yourself, or you can do one-to-one, which is coaching with the supervisor. You can do one-to-one, or you can do group sessions. You can bring somebody in like me, sit everybody around, which I've done quite many times over the years, and I've trained everybody up all in one session. And then they've all signed the book to say they've all been trained, they've all done an internal test. It's all in a book which is tamper-proof, so no one can tear pages out. We're not dealing with loose pages, and it's all there. All the questions are there. All the information is there, what the candidate has learned that day. So there's no, if anybody goes in to inspect, it's all there for them. They can see what the candidates learned, what the questions were, how they answered, how many they got wrong, if they've done a retest. And they can sit there and they can go over and over and over the questions until they get every one of them right. You know, I've even got a card system which you leave behind the counter, and it's cards, and the question with multiple choice answer is actually on the front, and you turn it over and the answer's on the back with an explanation of whatever the question is about. So it's quite a good training session. And as I say, it has been accepted by lots of councils and lots of police across the country over the years, and they do like it. And the clients like it because it's cheap. You know, they get these books free. With every application that we do, they get a full set of books free. There's no charge for them. And then we do lots and lots of, in fact, we're so busy with them that we've had to bring in a lady just to make books because they're all bespoke to the premises. You can't even give them to another shop, and it's all there. So we think they're quite good, and it helps the shop to become fully compliant with the license conditions.
Okay, and Mr. Clark, I think you've already said, you've confirmed that does include conflict management training within that.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Can I just say that Councillor Richardson has just joined the meeting. She is a member of the licensing committee, and she's here to observe just for training purposes, and she won't be taking part in the meeting. Okay, thank you. Right, we'll carry on. Well, I'll now go over to Dorset Police, to Louise Busfield, to make your representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, before I actually start what I was going to say, I just want to confirm that and put it on record that my objection is in relation to the full variation application, and that is to remove the conditions and to extend the licensable hours. I think so. I hope that there hasn't been any misunderstanding in respect of objection to the entire application. In fact, I believe that if it was just a removal of conditions and a change of layout, then that would be a minor variation anyway, which we don't generally comment on unless in exceptional circumstances. So I don't believe that my objection could have been misinterpreted, but just to get that on record in case it was. It is, just to introduce ourselves, so it is and it's always been the intention of the Dorset Police Drug and Alcohol Harm Reduction Team to engage and support licensees throughout Dorset to promote the 4 licensing objectives. And it's our expectation and our desire that all licensees will endeavour to meet these objectives and also to fulfil their responsibilities in upholding these objectives, as well as meeting the conditions attached to the premises licence. Over the past 2 or 3 years, and certainly more recently from June, July, beginning of August, we were receiving multiple sources of intelligence and indeed complaints in respect of this premises, which is now known as Abracadabra. The location of the premises, for those who aren't as familiar, it's quite open. It's on a corner. It's adjacent to the Fountain Roundabout. It's on a main street. So there's a lot of passing traffic, foot traffic, and also other agencies who are going about their daily business. The intelligence that we were receiving were not about one specific aspect. It wasn't just about street drinking and antisocial behaviour and possibly selling to intoxicated persons. We also had intelligence about potentially selling to underage youngsters, as well as counterfeit vapes and potentially counterfeit tobacco as well. So given the level of intelligence and the diversity of the intelligence, a joint operation was arranged to visit Abracadabra on the 8th of August 2023 in order to ensure that the operators were complying with the conditions attached to the premises licence, and also to give my colleagues trading standards the opportunity to look at the premises, search the premises for any potential counterfeit tobacco or illegal vapes. The agencies involved were CSAS officers, trading standards, and Christchurch neighbourhood policing team, as well as myself from the Drug and Alcohol Harm Prevention team. So we all had a different remit, a different interest when we attended the premises. And mine, of course, focused on the premises licence and any potential breaches of the premises, of the conditions attached to the premises licence. When we attended the premises, Mr. Mohammed wasn't there, and there was a lad who introduced himself. I've got his name here. I don't know if it's appropriate to detail it, who said that he was helping out. He had no training. He doesn't get paid. Mr. Mohammed was at the cash and carry, and he phoned Mr. Mohammed to advise that he had officers who needed to conduct these inquiries. So I haven't got the exact times of how long we were there for, but if Mrs. Clark suggests we were there for 2 hours, I'm sure that would have given Mr. Mohammed ample time to return from the cash and carry to attend to his shop, if indeed that's where he was. However, we only spoke to this lad. As I said, he was very amenable. He said he was hoping to become a student, and he reiterated he had no understanding of how the shop was ran. He had no training. So immediately there were evident breaches of the conditions attached to the premises licence. Condition 2.1, I won't go through them all one by one, because these are breaches that were evidenced at the time of the visit. And perhaps this lad's report to Mr. Mohammed differs from the actual reality of what happened. So his first comments was he was helping out, he's unpaid, he's untrained. Condition 2.1, all staff shall be trained. That's an evident breach, and I don't believe that in any way, shape or form that can be open to interpretation. Every other breach that has been identified in the formal breach letter, and I do add that there was also a licensing interaction form left at the premises in this lad's possession to hand to Mr. Mahmood, with my contact details on it in the event of any concerns or queries. All of those breaches, I've got every confidence that we have identified them as definite breaches of the premises licence at the time of our visit. After our visit and having left this paperwork, the formal letter was then sent to the operator on the 21st of August, and that letter also gets sent through to the licensing authority, and it details the breaches. Normally, when we work with operators in this manner, and there are such significant concerns, I would anticipate a response from the operator and say they've got our details on this formal letter. They've got my sergeant's contact details, and I left my details at the premises at the time of the visit. So thereafter, we would expect a period of support and engagement in which the operator could ask for support, materials, direction, training, and we've got access to direct operators to lots and lots of online resources which are free of charge. Challenge 25 posters don't have to be bespoke. They can be downloaded from Google. A lot of our operators print them off in such a way. We can recommend and direct towards the accredited training system, which is written by Trading Standards, BCP. It's a BCP training package, which is called No Proof of Age, No Sale. That's an accredited standardized training package for operators. Again, it's free to small operators. Similarly, conflict management. We do seek to have accredited or recognized training qualifications, as experience has shown that sometimes in-house training isn't up to the sort of standards that we would seek to achieve, or whether we would seek for our operators to achieve. Therefore, without any further communication from the premises, or indeed your representatives, Mr. Mohammed, that I was very taken aback, I could say, to receive a full variation with no acknowledgement even of the 2 documents that had been left with the premises detailing the significant breaches. It didn't give us the confidence that we could work with the operator and that they would then be in a position to uphold the licensing objectives with extended hours. In addition to my initial objection as a result of your application, we are still receiving intelligence in relation to this premises. I can't go into what this intelligence is, and I'll be very happy to meet with Mr. Mohammed, and like you have done, Mrs. Clark, do a full review or audit, if you like, or a full and comprehensive licensing visit, just to make sure that he understands his full responsibilities and the conditions attached to the premises license. I know that you did comment that how did we know who the operator was and what were the conditions of the premises license on our visit because of the mislaid applications. We knew that the premises the license had transferred. We knew it had transferred. We didn't know to whom, but we knew it had transferred, and we knew there hadn't been any variations submitted, because minor variations, not always, but certainly full variations, are they're disseminated by BCP licensing, and they come to us as licensing officers for the statutory 28-day consultation period. So we knew that the conditions your operator was on his license were exactly the same as those of his predecessor who previously held the license. And in respect of not knowing who the operator was, that's absolutely right. We didn't know who the operator was. And again, it's important for us as licensing officers who look after specific areas of Dorset to work with the operators and develop a relationship with them, an open dialogue, which we are successful. We pride ourselves on when we work with operators throughout the conurbation and throughout Dorset Council. Your colleague who you left, or your friend who you left helping out in the shop, showed me a laminated A4 document with the name of Abracadabra, and it stated underneath, premises license holder, Mr. Yunus Mohammed. I think this was maybe hand done or home typed up. It was certainly not a formal copy of the license, but he presented that to us as you being the person in charge. So again, I would comment on Mrs. Clark's observation that we had no idea of the conditions or who the operator was. I do have some other comments that I can make in response to some of the information that you have presented this morning. I don't know whether it's appropriate for me to go through them one by one. I mean, they were numerous. I have actually only documented the ones that I think are probably more significant. Somebody said they couldn't get hold of police licensing. They had no contact details for support. Again, I left my details on the premises on the 8th of August. Trading Standards left a receipt, so you would have had the Trading Standards contact details. It was then followed up by a formal letter from our office endorsed by Sergeant Gosling with our direct contact details, email and phone number. There's no denial that this letter has been received. So therefore, I challenge that you were unable to get hold of anyone for police licensing. I don't concur with the friend's account to Mr. Mohammed of how our visit was conducted and potentially even the length of time we spent in the premises. And I do reiterate that Mr. Mohammed was contacted by this person who was helping out. So he had ample opportunity to return to the premises. Trading Standards has the powers to search the premises. I was conducting a full licensing inspection. The friend who was helping out in the shop advised that you or the premises had also taken over the barber's shop upstairs and that it was being used for storage. The friend was perfectly amenable in allowing Trading Standards and my colleagues his keys so they could try them in the door of the barber's. It was a lock, the keys didn't fit. There was no suggestion whatsoever of anything being forced or locks broken. There was no damage. It was an executed, planned Trading Standards operation. And I can assure you that there was no force involved whatsoever. We did engage with the other premises upstairs. In fact, it was only the shop fitters who were there at the time. The other businesses that you allude to weren't present. And we were asking them for information. Do you know who works here? How long has the new management been in place? Because again, we were slightly in the dark and we needed to ascertain this information. And in respect of intelligence received, it's good to talk to the local community. That's how we develop intelligence and work with operators to uphold the licensing objectives. And if we don't have the confidence and we continue to evidence breaches and potentially criminal activity, then we have further information and evidence to progress to potentially reviews of licenses. But it was not an interrogation. None of us is trained in interrogation. It was a question about, was the barbers occupied? Had you seen people going up and down to the barbers? That was the extent of the conversation. If there is anything further that you would like me to clarify, if I have missed some of the points that you raised, which should potentially be challenged, and I'm happy if you can reiterate them, because as I say, most of what we have experienced, on that day was not as it has been reported to Mr. Mohammed and also further disseminated to Mrs. Clark. I appreciate you spoke quite extensively about vape legislation. Again, I'm not going to be able to comment on that. My area of expertise is licensing, Trading Standards, who have sent the supporting document. They are the subject matter experts in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's it. Members, questions? Ladies first.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted a bit of clarification on one point. You've answered many of my questions, but thank you. Mrs. Clark mentioned there are various documents, the books relating to the CCTV documentation, the refusals book, and staff training record, if I'm correct, that were on the premises. that weren't asked to be seen by your team when visiting. So I just wanted to get some confirmation on, did you ask to see those pieces of documentation that have been detailed? And if so, what was the reaction? Just so I can try and get a bit of clarity here.
All of the breaches, all of the breaches identified are as a result of me asking the lad who is in charge of the premises where these items were, if he was trained. On a license, if you just to give you a little bit of context, on a licensing visit, I take a copy of the license in me, introduce myself, whether it's a member of staff, the DPS manager, whomever it is. Sometimes they'll call the manager, sometimes they'll call the DPS, sometimes the staff are happy to do the licensing visit without any management support. We go through the license and you say, what sort of training have you received? And they say, oh, we're trained on a regular basis, and they give us that information. Can you show me the refusals book? And it generally shows the refusals book, and we have a look at the number of refusals that have been logged. And we go through the conditions attached to the premises license one by one. And if there's any confusion, or perhaps the member of staff says, I'm not trained to operate CCTV, but there's always somebody on the premises who can. I'll just call my manager, my colleague. We will then have a look at CCTV. So I can assure you that all of these breaches have been evidenced.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's anything else?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions first of all. On your visit on the 8th of August, you mentioned the layout was different to the September 20 licence. What was your main concerns about the new layout?
To be honest, we don't really have concerns about a layout as long as it's not facilitating shoplifting or leaving high value spirits by the front door, things like that. If it's an application just to change a layout, we generally don't comment on it. So the layout per se didn't concern me, but we made us aware also that a new plan would have to be submitted to the licensing authority.
Thank you. And then the other question is, obviously, you identified all these breaches, and like Mrs. Clark said, but there was no follow-up since 8th of August. Is this because, why was there no follow-up?
Yeah, that's a very pertinent question. The follow-up would usually be from the operator who has received this formal notification of breaches to the premises licence. And with no response received, I would then conduct a further visit, maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, and discuss any improvements or any support they might need. And we would hope then that they've had this wake-up call, if you like, and they've had a period of time to put in some improving measures. However, before we were able to do that, we received the full variation, which kind of started that process.
Okay, thanks for confirming. That's it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Would you like to ask a question?
Mrs. Clark. Hello. I was interested when you were talking about Mr. Mohammed and the vapes not being aware of what the advice of the type of vapes not to sell. What's the situation with vapes now in the premises?
Well, he's only got the vapes, which are the 2 mil, which are 600 puffs.
Okay.
That's all he's got.
And
In fact, he's actually thinking of not selling them at all because they're causing too many problems.
Yeah.
So he's just got the vapes, which are legal now. He's just got the vapes. There is nothing that my client now is doing, and he's been doing everything right. He didn't even know the vapes were illegal. He didn't know, or unlawful, I should say. He didn't know that they shouldn't be there. And as soon as he found out, he's make sure that he buys them properly again. I mean, this guy was just some guy that Asian guy that pulled up in a van and said, do you want to buy some vapes? And he didn't know. He thought he was just getting a good price. But that's never going to happen again. And as I say, we had a discussion about them yesterday, and they are apparently the government is looking to ban them all anyway next year. So he's actually looking at getting rid of them sooner rather than later. So but the vapes are causing massive problems all over the shop, all over the place, and shopkeepers unfortunately are able to get hold of these vapes with 3,500 puffs. So it's it's a shame for them really, but he's not going to. I think he's not going to sell them for much longer.
Is Mr. Mohammed still there? Can't see him on camera anymore.
No, he seems to have disappeared somewhere. I don't know.
Well, we can't. Oh, he's just come back. Mr. Mohammed, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
I think his screen's just frozen, to be absolutely honest.
We can hear you though.
Yeah, sorry, I just go one phone call, but I cannot get in a camera.
Well, okay, that's all right, don't worry. We were just going to ask you about your awareness of the legal situation around vapes and also alcohol strengths and the underage situation. We just wanted to make sure that you are conversant with the situation.
So basically, at the moment,
Sorry, I
So
was just going to
basically-
ask whether or not you are experienced.
yeah, and basically at the moment, like for every people like like looks under 25 years old, like when I got the challenge from the book, say challenge for under 25. So I'm asking for like each customer for alcohol, for the vape, for the tobacco. Then, as like the books mentioned, all the rules.
Have you had experience in doing this sort of job before?
Sorry.
You had experience of doing this work before?
Not before, but at the moment, I know all. At the moment, I know all the rules.
Okay, thank you for your help.
Mrs. Clark, maybe you could help the members on that question. Can you just, do you know his history, his retail experience in running this type of premises and business?
I believe that he's worked in a shop prior to taking his own business on. But I think this shop was going cheap, and that's why he jumped on it, which most of them do. I know one gentleman last week, he cancelled his wedding to buy a shop because it was going on what they call a fire sale. So, but yeah, he's learned an awful lot in the months that he's been there, and obviously he can continue to be trained by me. And once a client comes to us and they have a problem, we tend not to leave them until we're happy that they've got everything in place and they know what they're doing. And even with the extra hours till 2 o'clock, it can attract different types of clients, different types of customers under different circumstances. So I spoke yesterday, and I tried to mention to him that, you know, he's probably going to have different people, so the conflict management will come in handy after 11 o'clock. Which, but mind you, I mean, some people you need conflict management in the morning, not even night times. So yeah, I think he's all right. I'm pretty confident with him that he's going to be fine. He's got us to support him. We're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. And I can spend as much time as necessary on the phone with him, FaceTime, to make sure that he's got everything in place and he's doing everything the right way, which we have done now.
Okay, thank you for your help. Right, I think that everyone's asked all the questions. Anyone got any? We've done the questions for the place, yeah. Don't confuse me, sorry. So, I'm now going to give the parties an opportunity to sum up, and the party who spoke last will go first. So over to the police.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate that we are here to support and engage with licensed premises and to keep the county and the conurbation a safe place for operators and customers alike. It's not just about the operators, it's about the general public, it's about people who go into the stores. At this stage, I think I've made my position or our position quite clear that we do have significant concerns about the operation of this premises. But at the same time, we are there to support, and I would welcome further engagement from Mr. Mohammed, because I appreciate Mrs. Clark that you are, I'm not quite sure where in the country you are, but sometimes I believe that physically being in a premises and getting a feel for it is needed and it's necessary and very, very valuable. And I would welcome if you are able to visit him in the premises. I think that could add value perhaps to his developing training. But as I say, in the meantime, I shall await contact from him and we will be able to guide him to resources and support. In the meantime, we are still, and I do again reiterate this, receiving intelligence about this premises, which I'm duty bound to follow up on, some of which I will be able to share with Mr. Mohammed and some of which I won't be at this stage. Thank you. I've got nothing further to add.
Thank you for that. So, Mrs. Clark, would you like to sum up?
Yes, I will. Thank you very much. I take on board what the officer has just said, and I'm sure that my client is more than happy to work with the police and with the authorities to make sure that his shop is compliant. He doesn't know what the intelligence is, but there was some unsavoury people before him, so maybe the intelligence links back to them, but not him. He's very concerned about what happened with the vapes, and he was very upset about it. And he doesn't want to do anything like that. And he promised me yesterday that he's never going to do anything like that again. It will never happen again. He just wants a little business. He wants to earn a living. He wants to run his own business. He does not want to enter into any criminal activities. And he just wants to lead a simple, uncomplicated life, which most of us want anyway. The Licensing Act is all about partnership working. It is all about working with the authorities. We're not fighting each other. We shouldn't be in a battle. Sometimes people, when they're new to the trade, they do need assistance because, I mean, as I said before, you know, the Licensing Act is complicated anyway. But when you're bringing in other aspects of acts, different types of acts, Consumer Protection Act, Product Protection Act, and all these acts, you know, I mean, it's very complicated for someone whose English is a second language to actually get a hold of all this. I mean, I read legislation, so I know how to read it and I know how to find it. But for someone who's a novice and whose language is English is second language, it's very, very confusing. And all these websites that I went on to try and search, to try and find out when this 2 mil vape came into force, it took me about an hour to find it, until in the end I just gave up. And I actually went to find the legislation to find out it wasn't, it was just a statutory instrument, which is just a regulation. So it is difficult for these people. And sometimes I feel sorry for them that, you know, I mean, enforcement officers, whether it be the police or the licensing, they are, they're fully au fait with all the legislation because, you know, I mean, they're professionals. They know their job inside out. They know the rules that surround them. But and so it's easy for people like them and people like me to cannot understand, why don't you know about this when we do? And it's all about teaching them, and it's all about guidance. So Mr. Mohammed is very happy to work with the authorities. He's very happy for anybody to come to his shop to see his books, to see all his signage. Yes, he made a few mistakes at the beginning by asking a friend to look after his shop while he went cash and carry, but that was a mistake, and it was just bad timing for him, but good timing for the police and trading standards. But really, in my mind and my opinion, they should have called him back to the shop so they could question him, not do a search without him. Because how can somebody who is brand new to a shop, has never been there before, how are they expected to answer questions? They've never been in a shop before. He's just looking after the till. You know, the only thing he can do is close the shop and he loses business. So, you know, it's like, it doesn't make any sense to go in and start questioning someone who's got no experience and expecting them to give the answers that an experienced person would give. And, you know, the gentleman, Mr. Mohammed, said no one rang him. No one rang him until after the officer had gone. No one rang him because he was frightened to death. He was petrified of what was happening. And sometimes for people, it can be very intimidating. But as I said before, reiterate, he is happy to work with them. He doesn't want to do anything wrong. He just wants to run his business. His customers are asking for his extra hours. He's done nothing else wrong. And I'm sure that somebody or trading standards or the police have been in and tried to test purchase him. I'm sure they have. I'm sure he must have had at least 2 test purchases in the time he's been there. And he's obviously passed both of them. So something's going right. And obviously, I know how the officers work. I know that they send people in and just to observe what's going in the shop. They don't even say anything. They just go in and have a look to see what you can see. Right. And I know that these officers have probably been in and they've obviously seen nothing. And that's why they've gone back. They've heard nothing. They've seen nothing. Everything's all in order. And that's why no one's ever been back to the shop. But he's happy for people to go to the shop. He's not hiding anything and has never tried to hide anything. So, but this is not about the vapes. The vapes unfortunately happened. This application is about the asking for 3 additional hours. He's quite competent enough to cope with those hours. And I think he'll cope with them, and I don't think he'll have any problems personally. He's got me to support him. He's got the licensing officers to support him. If he wants any questions, he's got phone numbers. But, you know, he's not going to support. He's going to support himself, you know, in doing the right thing. He just wants to run his shop. That's all he wants. He's not interested in anything else. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Can I just bring the police in again, because they would like to ask you a question, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. I believe that there is new information which has just been presented by Mrs. Clark, which I don't believe has been in detailed in any of the PAC documents in relation to test purchases which have been undertaken on this premises. Could you tell me some more about them and which agency undertook the test purchases?
I didn't say that he had been. I said, I suspect that he's probably had at least two test purchases, because most shops do have at least 2 every 6 months. So I didn't say he had a test purchase. It was, I suspected that somebody had been in to test him, because you're doing your job. You're very efficient. You do your job properly. And that's part of your job, is to test purchase. I know how it works. So obviously I believe that people have probably been in They've checked the shop, they've seen nothing and walked away, and they don't tell him. They don't say they've been there. But I don't know. We've no evidence. It's just my suspicion.
I just wish to clarify that when the test purchase operation is conducted in Dorset, it might be very different where in your area. Certainly when test purchasing is undertaken in Dorset, documentation is left with the premises and disseminated to the licensing authority. If it's been a positive visit, in other words, the sale hasn't gone ahead, then they receive communication to that effect. And likewise, if they fail the test purchase, then we work with them to take remedial action and support them in, again, driving up their standards, reinforcing Challenge 21. But thank you for clarifying that there haven't been any test purchases.
Well, as I said before, I don't know, but but I know many councils that don't tell anybody they've been in. They just go in. I know a lot of councils that employ foreign people to go in and try and buy cigarettes, but that's another matter, not for today. I don't know if it's been test purchased. I'm only surmising that it's normal for a shop to be test purchased at least once every 6 months, but he hasn't received a letter, so he obviously hasn't been test purchased. So thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Clark, for the clarifications, and thank you all for the representations that have been made. I think I'm now going to conclude the hearing. At the end of this meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and the clerk to deliberate. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be provided within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day on which the hearing was held, in accordance with the regulations. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. And I'm just going to ask the legal advisor to explain the right of appeal.
Thank you, Chair. So there is a right of appeal to the decision that is made today. That appeal should be made to Dorset Magistrates Court within 21 days of formal notification of the decision. All the details will be on the decision notice.
Thank you for that. Well, that concludes the hearing. So thank you to everyone for attending today. Thank you.